Oh, hey there. Come on in. We're just about to start. Welcome to My Wife, the Dietitian, a fun weekly podcast about nutrition and healthy lifestyle. I'm Rob, and together with my wife, Sandra, we invite you to join us on this informative and entertaining journey through the complex world of healthy eating.
Join us each week as we strive to help you with transforming your overall health and relationship with food through up-to-date, evidence-based nutrition information. Problematic eating is very personal. People often keep concerns about their eating private. It's common to be ashamed and secretive about how you eat. You might feel guilty, frustrated, or disgusted with yourself. This can be a cycle, as these distressing feelings can also then trigger you to eat again. If you feel that your eating is out of control, you are not alone. Stay with us for this enlightening interview with dietitian Wendy Shah, co-creator of Craving Change program.
Welcome to My Wife, the Dietitian. Hello, Sandra.
Good morning, Rob.
How are you?
I'm good. Today we have an engaging interview with dietitian Wendy Shah, co-creator of Craving Change program.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Dietitians all over the world have taught thousands of people how to change their relationship with food.
Yeah, and you did this for quite a few years as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with like really positive results.
Oh, it was just such a great program, and the feedback received from participants was overwhelmingly positive, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome. Can you just give a quick little explanation of what it is?
Okay, Craving Change program is not a diet. It does not teach you what, when, where, or how much to eat. Rather, it focuses on why you eat the way you do. As you become more aware of your own personal eating triggers, you will be better able to control your food cravings and change your problematic eating behaviors.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's based on the cognitive behavioral approach.
Right. So it's looking at sort of the psychological, or including the psychological influence, or that perspective anyway, in terms of how we eat or why we're eating.
Yes, exactly. And just shifting our mind, our thoughts around why we're reaching for food and helping us to identify the reasons we eat. So Craving Change is a really good program. It was developed by dietitian Wendy Shah, who we're talking to today, and registered psychologist Colleen Cannon. And they teamed up together to create this program, and it's been running for years. And talking to Wendy Shah it was really quite a thrill for me, because I taught this program for so many years in our local community in person with groups, and to get to talk to the co-creator of such a successful program was just awesome.
Yeah, I could tell. Yeah, it's a great interview, and I encourage people to stay with us and listen to it, because it's really good information for everyone to hear. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think most people could benefit from looking at reasons for eating and how to change their relationship with food.
Absolutely. All right. Well, stick with us. We'll be right back with Wendy Shah.
Hi, we're here today with Wendy Shah, dietitian, creator of Craving Change group program. And Wendy, thank you for joining us this morning. Could you tell a little bit about yourself to the listeners?
Absolutely. So I've been a dietitian for actually over 40 years, and have always really enjoyed teaching people kind of the positive angle of what might help them with their health if they make a few changes with their eating, and felt at a certain point in my career that I was very effective. I would say we were doing well in terms of people understanding what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, say for their blood sugars, their blood pressure, maybe cholesterol, that type of thing. But they still had some challenges trying to make or maintain those changes. And I couldn't quite figure out why this was, becoming a bit of an issue for people, and we were sort of struggling together. And it became obvious to me that what was missing was an understanding of why, we eat the way we do and why it can be more challenging to make those changes. And so I was fortunate to work in a diabetes, hypertension, and cholesterol center for a number of years. And we had a multidisciplinary team, including psychologists. And one of those psychologists was Dr. Colleen Cannon. And I not only was doing a lot of reading at the time on the psychology of eating, because I really felt that this had been missing in my training as a dietitian. I was attending some courses, but more importantly, I was just learning more from the psychologists that were working with the population I was. And at one point attended some group programs that Dr. Cannon was doing. And her approach was to use what's called the cognitive behavioural model. And that's where you become more aware of thoughts and emotions that are affecting your behavior. And very often just trying to change our behavior without addressing particularly our thinking habits makes a difference. And so what I learned, and what was really a big aha moment for me, was that the people that I worked with and myself, we needed to have a better understanding of the thinking habits in order to change the eating habits.
Right. That's, yes, I like that.
And so what Colleen and I did was we developed a group program and felt that it was very important for people to understand that they weren't alone in these challenges, and that a group program would offer that opportunity for people to connect with each other, share their experiences, but more importantly, sort of take away some of that guilt and shame, feeling that they were the only ones that were having these difficulties. And we developed a program that kind of worked through some steps. And so what we do with the Craving Change program is we start off just by discussing why it's hard to change. Like what is it about, for example, where we live, or what we've learned growing up, or what our associations are with food, or what messaging is out there that makes it difficult. And I'd love to have more discussion with you about that, because I love that. And it's something that affects absolutely all of us.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, I'm looking, I remember the first class is eating under the influence of ... So our environment, like how it causes impaired eating, like instead of, impaired driving, it's impaired eating. Eating under the influence of our body, like how we may be working against what our body needs. Eating under the influence of our learned behavior and how we developed our eating habits growing up and as we were young and our, with our family, and then information about just getting the why, like, as you said, kind of identifying. So that's like one of the first weeks in the group is just delving into why we make the choices and why our behaviors are the way they are around food and eating. And because it's not just a simple something we heard, it's a complex puzzle. So anyways, that's from, I remember teaching the class, and I so appreciate that you guys developed this Craving Change program, because it was powerful.
Well, and that first discussion, I find that it really, you can just sort of see light bulbs going on all over the place, and the weight being lifted off the participants' shoulders, because it all makes sense. Like when you really become more aware of what's going on. And that class, I always sort of like to think of it as, and this is how I enjoy going through life anyway. It's, I sort of take the Seinfeld approach, where it's, have you ever noticed like where they put the milk in the grocery store, and you have to go all the way to the back of the store, and by the time you get there, you've seen a sale and there's something else that catches your attention. And, marketing's very clever.
You can never go into a grocery store and buy just the one thing you're going in for, right? You come out with like a bucket load, depending on, that's funny.
Oh no. And I mean, the fact is that food and the food industry is probably one of the biggest businesses out there. And there is so much psychology actually involved in how foods are presented, how they're put on sale. I mean, if they say limit of 4, chances are you're going to buy 4 of something, even though that you really only needed 1.
Yeah.
Right.
You think you have to buy, or if it's 2 for
Well,
1, you think you have to buy 2
I
It's
to
a
know.
get that
psychology.
price, right?
There's a lot of science behind how they put the
Oh,
pricing. There's a lot of
there
science.
totally is. And the variety, like an example I always give with this whole environment. So one of the discussions I love to have is, what's different now in our environment, like just our eating environment, compared to, say, our grandparents. And I'll use an example, for example, like my grandparents were on a farm in Saskatchewan. So, I mean, what did they have to drink?
Milk
Water.
and
Water?
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, milk from the cow, maybe
Yep.
some juice if they had some berries that year, coffee, tea. When I grew up, you had a few varieties of juice. You could have chocolate milk, but oh yeah, and I think there was like Orange Crush and something like that. But now you go down a juice aisle, like I mean,
There's
how
an
many
entire
different?
aisle for it now.
Oh, I know.
That's the difference, right?
Yeah, and the fact is we're influenced by variety. I mean, just think of buffets, right? If you went to a dessert buffet and they had, 20 different desserts, how many desserts would you eat?
I'd eat them all,
Yeah.
Yeah.
20.
but
If you,
I'm not a good role model that way.
No, it's
yeah,
I think it's human nature.
Yeah,
but maybe
exactly.
you go to a dessert buffet and they have one amazing thing. Like, I mean, it's this wonderful cake. I mean, you might have 2 pieces, but it's just different. Like, and so we have variety around us all the time. Plus, food is everywhere. Like it used to be you had like a hardware store and you just went in and you got hardware and there was no food in sight. Or you went in to pick up your prescriptions at a pharmacy and there wasn't any food. You went to Walmart and you bought your clothes and you bought whatever. Now it seems like everywhere we go, they seem to think they need to invite us to eat.
Right.
That's right. Even a bank,
Everywhere.
you can buy chocolate bars in a bank, for like some fundraiser or, it's like, what? This is a bank. I don't need to be reminded that I should be eating or I should buy something sweet for my craving.
Gas stations make more money from the food they sell than from the gas. Like, I mean,
Really?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I that's one of the things I know I spend quite a bit of time just reassuring people that there's a reason that it's so challenging to make decisions. And even it's termed like in what we've learned too. So for example, most of us have, been taught to make our money stretch as far as it can. You want to get a good deal. So we have that kind of mentality. And so let's say you go to get lunch at a sub sandwich place and you look at the board and you see, well, okay, I pay this much for, a 6-inch and I'd pay this much for a 10-inch or 12-inch. You can tell you're getting more value for your money for the bigger one.
Right.
But the fact is, a lot of us don't, need that much energy for what we're doing in a typical day. And guess what? They got you spending more money in the end.
Right.
So,
even though you think it's better value because you're getting more food for that money. Well, per unit, you're getting more value. But like you said, do we really need that much?
Yeah. No, I know. And so these are the sorts of things I really like people to just be aware and curious. So that's kind of how the whole program starts, is just let's have a little bit of a insight into our own learned behaviors, our own messaging that's going through our head, and then also just how we're being influenced around us all the time to eat. And the more aware you are, the more you can say, hold on. Like I know sometimes I'll walk in to pay for gas at a gas station or something, and there'll be, well, in fact, I just did that yesterday because I was driving and there were these packages of cookies, and I almost thought I could smell that they baked them in the convenience store.
In the gas station.
And I thought, I'm going on a road trip. And I thought, no, I know what you're doing to me. I just came here to pay for my gas. I'm not going to buy these cookies. But yeah, so it's all around us for sure. And then things like, so many of us, I think not so much the newer generation, but, finish everything on your plate. Make sure you don't waste food. That's very important. And, to be honest, I'm wondering if that's going to be a message again now with with the cost of food. I'm wondering if we're going to be heading back to that, where parents are going to be, a little on edge if all of a sudden they're throwing food out because their child didn't eat.
That's
eat
right.
what was on their plate.
That's right. Because we see like elderly people that they lived through the Depression, and they were told, and then they told their kids, there's starving kids in Africa, and I paid a lot of money for that food, and you need to finish everything on your plate, and that's where people feel guilty, because there was probably a lot of emotion around the dinner table when they were young about finishing their food, and they'd have to sit after everybody else left the room. And Rob has some stories of his upbringing, which was typical for all of us in the 70s and 60s, and where people were, the kids had to sit at the table and finish everything on their plate because, for various reasons.
Right. No, so different than what we're teaching now, right? To tune into your hunger and satiety signals and so on. But so just letting people know that. So then after we've talked about, kind of why this can be so challenging, then we focus in a little bit more on a personal basis to help people determine what their triggers are. Like, so what are the times when they might have some difficulty with making the food choices that they feel are healthy for them and that sort of thing. And so it's maybe assessing how are they feeling at those times. So we have this emotions kind of checklist, or what are the circumstances that they're in, or even just trying to stop for a minute and assess whether it really truly is what we would call stomach hunger, or sort of a physical hunger, or is it more that they're craving a texture or taste, so it's sort of a mouth hunger, or is it related to either an emotion, how they're feeling, or a learned behavior, which would be what we would call in the program heart hunger. And then that gives you a little bit more to work with in terms of how to respond to those three types of hunger.
Yeah, I totally remember going through this with our participants in the community here, our local community. And there was a lot of, as you said, aha moments. And just we'd use the whiteboard and brainstorm all of the different reasons for eating. And in terms of, it's dinner time, or I'm in the car and I'm getting gas, and there's food available at the gas station and it smells good. The cookies smell good. Or, you're going through a drive-through and someone else in the car is ordering something, so I'm going to order something. So all the reasons. And and that is an interesting way to look at it, because I think many of us go through our life on autopilot and just eat, anytime, whenever, just we don't really think about, we're not using that cognitive behavior approach in terms of kind of identifying our environment, identifying why we're eating and why we're reaching for food. As you said, what type of hunger is it? Is it mouth hunger? Is my stomach actually hungry because it's been, 5 or 6 hours since I ate, or maybe I didn't eat the last meal, I skipped it. So this was it's a powerful exercise for participants. I think it's great too, because so many people think that they're coming to a group with a dietitian and it's going to be about protein, carbs, fats, vitamins and minerals. And this is such a different approach, and it's so powerful. It's the feedback.
It's the psychology. It's like coming from a more psychological approach, right? Which is really, I think, important. It's a great combination, I think, that you've teamed up with someone who's got those skills, and you've created this program, because food isn't just about nutrition. It's about everything that you're teaching, right?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I remember Sandra using this approach on me, because I'm kind of one of those mindless eaters sometimes, especially at night when I'm probably not hungry because I've been eating all day, but I get like the mindless eating and I want to snack, and I get out the cheese and crackers and I just start eating without even thinking about it. It's just like this routine. You cut the cheese, you put it on the cracker, you put it in your mouth, you cut the next piece of cheese. I'm like a robot. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, are you hungry? Or is that mouth feel or taste? Or like, she's kind of like going through the whole program with me. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Actually, I am just kind of like mindlessly eating, and it's a habit. I've done it since I was a kid because my dad did it, and I'd sit and do it with him. And, it's definitely something once you're aware of, it's amazing how much of a difference it can make with changing the habit.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's like you said, Rob, that it's really nowadays, there are so many reasons that we eat other than for food. And I mean, our program absolutely encourages people to enjoy food and experience the pleasure of food, but just to be more aware of what you're doing. And that exercise that you mentioned, Sandra, I love it because it's so visual. When you've made a list, let's say, that everybody can look at, and you can do this with just, a friend, you can do it with anybody, where you just sit there together and you just let's just write down all the different reasons that we might eat. It takes no time to fill up a sheet of paper. And then if you, next to each of those reasons, identify whether that's like, is that physical hunger, is that stomach hunger, or was that more like a craving because we saw an advertisement for, a blizzard or whatever it is, or is it heart hunger? What you always 100% will see is that the majority of those reasons are heart hunger. And some of the top ones are things like feeling stressed or bored or tired or that kind of thing. And so then, you sort of think about that and say, well, eating does help. Like I love to use the bored example, for example. So you're bored. Okay. So, maybe I'll just go eat something. So you go and eat something, and that takes maybe, 5-10 minutes. Well, then you're still bored. And not only are you bored, but now you might in some cases feel, kind of uncomfortable or disappointed in yourself, or why did I eat that type of thing? So now you're dealing with a different emotion that can, for some people, result in even in more eating, for example. If it is mouth hunger, then really enjoy it. So, if you're going to eat those cheese and crackers, Rob, like make sure you take, close your eyes, just really relish the taste of those cheese and crackers and the crunch and the flavor and everything. Get the full enjoyment out of it, right?
I think I do with the first couple, and then after that, it's just, what I've learned now is I'll take out 4 crackers and I'll cut 4 pieces of cheese, and then I'll put everything away, and I'll really enjoy those 4 crackers, because everything after that is just kind of redundant, and I just don't feel good after eating the whole package, right? So,
right, yeah. Yeah, and so with Craving Change, once people have identified some of the issues that they want to address, like there are certain maybe times of the day that they feel that they would like to manage their eating a little better, or maybe with their food choices, whatever it is, then we have a whole variety of what are considered cognitive behavioral skills that we teach. Because we always say it takes skill power, not willpower, to really make some sustainable changes. And the whole purpose of the program, if you're talking kind of in a little bit more of a clinical term, is we're trying to help people increase what's called your eating self-efficacy, which basically means that you feel you have the confidence and the skills to manage your eating in what would be maybe a more challenging situation, or when you are experiencing negative emotions, for example. Right. And so there's just a whole bunch of different, very simple, actually, things people can try. For each one, we always say, here's what you do. They sort of have 4 or 5 steps if you want to try this. So, for example, let's say somebody like you, Rob, because evening is a typical time for people to want to sort of watch their eating a bit more. We'll often say, okay, so now you're craving, let's just say it's the cheese and crackers, and you've been struggling with that. You can give yourself permission to have the cheese and crackers. Yeah, I can totally have those cheese and crackers, but I need to wait 1 minute, before I walk over to the fridge and start cutting off the pieces of cheese. So it's just to show that you do have control over the food. If you can find that a pause helps you manage, eventually people realize that the urge for that snack isn't as strong.
Right.
And so they can sort of work through it. And generally what we say is, when you are putting in that, we just sort of say, put your craving on hold is actually the name of the strategy for that one. We'll say, while you're doing that, try and have something else handy that you can do to distract yourself. So maybe it's you have some dice in the kitchen and you see if you can roll, 3 dice that are the same thing, or you do some deep breathing, or you check your phone for photos that you can delete from your photo file or something. Just something to distract you, and see if you can kind of, at the very least, just delay it, and then you can still eat. But you've sort of shown that you've managed things a little bit more than you might usually do.
Right.
Wendy, I have a question. Sorry.
That's okay.
With this approach, the cognitive behavior therapy, is it similar approach to when, people are trying to do a smoking cessation program, like to quit smoking, and just in terms of like put the craving on hold, like we're trying to ride that wave out, because the craving's like a wave. It's very powerful at first, and you really need that cheese and crackers or cigarette if they're trying to quit smoking, so that you feel that craving, and then it's really powerful. But then if you wait, if you roll the dice a little bit, or if you do some deep breathing, or if you do something like deleting photos or whatever distraction that you can do, then in a few minutes, it can actually, your craving's not as strong, and you can reassess. Do I still want that cheese and crackers? Do I still want that cigarette, for instance, if someone's trying to quit smoking? And that's kind of, is that part of it, or?
Yeah, the answer to your question is absolutely yes. So the whole idea of how your thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything and your behaviors are joined together is a model. It's sort of the gold standard, actually, for behavior change of any kind. So any kind of behavior that someone's trying to change, our thoughts are so powerful. It is amazing how just adjusting your thoughts or distracting your thoughts from something can help you get through something. And the example that you gave of how an urge or a craving is like a wave and how it feels is 100% correct.
Okay.
Especially when it's not hunger based, right? When it's just like, I want to taste that, or I'm bored, or, like if it's hunger based, it's probably not going to go away because you haven't eaten. But if it's an actual urge because you're bored or whatever, then yeah, waiting that minute or two, it will probably subside.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things that I know I've started to use more is the analogy of an iceberg, where if you look at an iceberg, you see a certain amount of ice above the water, and then we know that there's so much more actually underneath the surface that we don't see.
Right.
And as dietitians, we used to focus primarily just on the tip of the iceberg, which would actually be like behaviors. Behaviors are something we can see. So what is a person eating? How much are they eating? When are they eating? And absolutely, people need that information. What is important for me to manage my blood sugars or my blood pressure or whatever it is? But what the Craving Change program focuses on is we sort of skim under the surface. So what's underneath that behavior? Well, like, what are those thoughts? What are the circumstances? What are the feelings and so on that are part of that? But I just want to mention that although the program's based on the psychology of eating, we don't do any kind of a deep dive into, at least particularly dietitians who are primarily using the program. We're not going down into other things that we know can be associated with people's eating habits and their struggles, and that could be how they're managing marital conflict or how they are dealing with childhood trauma or various things. What happens with this program, though, is a lot of times people are now more aware that, maybe unless I can work through some of these other personal situations, I'm going to continue to have some difficulty with my eating unless I can find another way of coping that doesn't involve food. So it's a
that.
nice stepping stone for some people.
Yeah, in our local.
Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. In our local program, we actually ran it with the nurse and the social worker. The dietitian ran the program, but we have access, and all the clients had access all these other professionals. It's multidisciplinary. So a lot of the clients would access social work for counseling services around the same time as Craving Change. And it was it's kind of like how your program runs with Dr. Colleen Canning, because there's the expert too that helped develop this program. So it's mindful of all our roles in terms of our professional boundaries and what we're trained to do with people. Anyway, so Rob, if you want to say what you were going to say.
That's all good. I was just going to say that, you were saying you don't delve into the reasons too much about, the specific reasons of people's situations of marital stress or whatever, but just being aware that any kind of stress is going to affect your behavior when it comes to eating is probably important for people to be aware of, right?
Oh, it is. And again, messaging has really reinforced that. I mean, the fact is we can eat anywhere. It's relatively inexpensive. It's legal. So if
it's
people
legal,
are stressed,
it's true.
There's lots of ads. You deserve a break today. How many times have you watched TV where someone's saying, "Oh my gosh, I need, ice cream. I'm so stressed out," or whatever. Right. So it's become very acceptable as a way
and actually sorry to interrupt, but actually going through this program as a like an educator and someone who's teaching the program, it's very highlighted. Like, you notice these things all over the environment, like all over media, all over. And I think clients and participants start to really be on high alert on exactly what you said, just the messaging out in our society about eating and, you deserve a break today. And, I'm going to dive into my Ben and Jerry's, or, like just different slogans that are really highlighting and capitalizing on people's vulnerability and their cravings.
Oh, absolutely. Even the term comfort food, you'll see that on the front of magazines, or that's how I've seen that even with some of the fast food places. They'll sort of have a certain promotion, and they'll sort of focus that this is a comfort.
Yeah, I went to a book sale and I saw a cookbook that was basically it was comfort eating. And then it just had step number 1, grab your Ben and Jerry's. Step number 2, grab a spoon. And step number 3, open the top belt of your pants and just eat the whole thing.
Oh my God.
Just like, holy, interesting cookbook.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? The thing is, some people are comfortable with that, and that's just fine, But I know, I was going to make a point too. I know there's some sort of approaches now as well of trust your body, and your body can sort of direct you in terms of what you need, and just pay attention to your body. And I think that's fine to some extent, but I do feel that it's more that we have to be sort of learning how to get to the point where we can trust our mind, because I do feel that it's our mind that's being influenced and sort of overriding very often what our body is trying to tell us. And we can't help it. There's just so much messaging out there, and our food is just so readily available, and there are just so many circumstances now compared to decades ago, where I don't know that we can just trust our body to tell us what and when we eat, because we have to be paying attention to our conversations in our head, more importantly.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
agree too. I totally agree. And I love the why, the first week of the program is so powerful, because it does bring into the forefront, it actually helps you identify reasons. And it's almost like making a budget. Like, if you're just spending money and you don't know where it's all going, it's identifying where your money's going, where it's coming in. It's the same thing with eating and the relationship with food, and why are we eating, and what in the environment is pushing us to eat, and what are the messages we're seeing everywhere. And it's like, it's identifying. So it just brings, as you said, into our cognitive like awareness, like we're actually becoming aware. And then if you have that, then that helps you make better or make decisions around, like you said, if Rob wants that cheese and crackers and he's having that craving at night, and if he can identify that it is a craving and that, yeah, he wants it, and to, there's some distraction methods that can help delay that craving. And then he's more aware too that this is what it is. It's a craving, and that he can decide if he wants it or not and how much. And, and sometimes you just say, yeah, I want the whole thing, or yes, I do want this. But it's good to be aware. And that's where, like what you said, it's like the cognitive awareness, like becoming aware that you want to do this, or that why it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, and sometimes it is just like you said, Rob, it's just now become an automatic behavior. It's just something that you're almost conditioned.
Exactly. It's totally conditioning.
This. Yeah. Other times people are going to the kitchen, and if they stop for a little bit and have that time to pause, they might recognize that, they just got off the phone and had a difficult conversation with somebody, and they're feeling upset. So, okay, now I'm using the food to help me manage my emotions. If I can catch myself and understand that's what's going on, is there something else I could do? Like maybe I'll go just chill out and have a bubble bath, or maybe I'm going to phone my friend and vent about this call I just had, or something, or are you procrastinating? Maybe there's something that you need to do, but maybe I'll just go eat something first.
Exactly.
Could you go walk around the block for a couple times before you take on that challenge of that task? So it's, I think you really said it well, Sandra, and that is that really the crux of behavior change starts with awareness. Absolutely. And then you can go from there. And then so far, I was just going to say the last part of the Craving Change program is helping people then maintain changes they've made. And so that's skills again, and that involves things like problem solving. So if you are, finding that things are challenging, what specifically is going on? Narrow it down to what you identify as the issue, and then see if you can come up with some ideas of how to handle that particular challenge. What do you do if you did, I'm going to use the term fall off the wagon, just because I think a lot of listeners can relate to that term.
For sure.
Just be curious about it. Like, well, why did I do that anyway? Like, what's going on? And if that situation comes up again, are there ways I could do that a little differently next time? Not to judge yourself, but just to be curious about it. Like, just be interested and try and understand yourself.
It's awareness once again, right? Just being aware of why you're acting a certain way, or Yeah.
And the thing is, we have so many distractions now in our life that we're not really listening to our thoughts very much anymore. So we're not paying attention. There's, I don't know, it just feels like there's always noise or talking or messaging or something constantly. It's like people feel like they need that all the time, and they're not paying attention just to their own thoughts so that they can understand their behaviors and so on. So I love it if people can tune in a little more to those conversations they're having in their head, because they're going on whether they're aware of them or not.
Yeah,
Exactly. Oh yeah. No, that's, I think we definitely need to have you back on this show again, because there's just so much. I mean, like just your analogy of the iceberg, I feel like that's like, we've basically just brushed the tip of the top of the iceberg with this conversation, because it's so deep and there's just so much, and it's so relevant to everybody. Like we all eat. So, and it's legal. Like you said, food is legal.
Yeah.
Oh no, and I'd love to, because it's as you said, there's so much to explore in this area, and so many little things that people could experiment with in terms of just trying to use a little bit more of a cognitive approach. But like I say, this whole idea of kind of understand and kind of be convinced, like at least I have, like I say, that it's our thinking habits that very often determine our eating habits. And it's not something that certainly as dietitians, that was, we've learned more the science and the nutrition and all of that area, but didn't dwell on, what could your clients be thinking, or what psychology is going on here that's influencing their eating. And I've just found it fascinating.
I do too. I've got a background. I've got a degree in sociology with a sort of a lot of psychology in the mix as well. And I find it fascinating, just behavior in general. But it's interesting now working with Sandra on this podcast, sort of the influence I've been able to have with my background and kind of looking at things from that psychological perspective as well. And it's sort of neat, some of the different conversations we've been able to have based around why you're eating and some of the, like the picky eaters, kind of like why, like some strategies to help parents, and that sort of thing. So I think it's so important to look at the bigger picture that includes the reasons and the behavior and the psychology behind it, and not just the nutritional, the science part of it,
Oh,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. All right. I don't want to stop the conversation because it's just so interesting. And I feel like I'm feeling very fortunate that we were able to have you on our podcast, because I've been teaching Craving Change for years. I taught it for quite a few years, and it is such a powerful program. And I just appreciate you and the development of the program and this resource for people. And I feel really, I have to say, I was telling Rob for weeks since we first connected online. I was so excited for this interview, Rob?
Sandra was pretty giddy. Yeah. I'm like, whoa, this is a pretty big person we're interviewing here, I guess. Sandra's doing a little happy dance. So
it's just, oh my gosh, the respect I have for you and my colleagues, dietitian colleagues that also have used this program in the community and around Vancouver Island. This is really exciting that we had you on today. It's really awesome.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I think what it was that I was willing to take kind of a risk many years ago, to say, hey, I think as dietitians, we could be doing some of this, but we need some direction and we need some training in it. And so I think, yes, I see that I was a bit of a leader, because now, I mean, so many dietitians have embraced the whole idea of the psychology of eating. But yeah, I just felt it was so important, and we just had such interest from healthcare providers who had been sitting in on these workshops that we did at the original clinic where Colleen and I worked, that we just thought, hey, we've got to share this with others. And it's been so exciting, just so exciting.
Oh, definitely. Wendy, you are a trailblazer. This is pioneering work that you did. This is going to be used for future years to come, because it is so important and it's so powerful and it's changing lives. I really believe that, because the feedback I got from the participants that went through the program, through our community, again and again and again, it was, I wish I had this years ago. And this was so important. And then I had people coming and are you doing another Craving Change? Is there another one coming up? I heard my sister did it and I want to do it. And just the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and it changed lives. And it changed my life too, as a clinician, as a dietitian, just the way I counseled clients, even one-to-one, after doing the Craving Change groups, because it just changes perspective of like delving into the psychology and just the reasons for eating. And I have this, the magnet on our fridge, and I've been saying that to the kids for years too, just so that we can be aware, is it heart hunger? Is it mouth hunger? Is it stomach hunger? Those are the, really important things to think about. And intuitive eating is really important. And I totally reflect what you said about the trend. And I think it's so important. I just think it's really also important to think about our mind and what our thoughts are telling us and how that impacts our behavior. It's such a huge piece of the puzzle. And yeah, anyways, I think I will need to ask you this last question because it's one we ask all of our guests. And I think I gave it to you in preparation, but what dish would you bring to a family potluck meal that you were going to go to?
Mm-hmm. No, I love that question. And I have two answers.
Oh, perfect.
It depends on the time of year. So if it's in the fall or winter, I have a recipe. It's got a very unimaginative name. It was one of Anne Lindsay's lighthearted cookbook.
Oh, yeah, I have those.
Recipes.
We've been practicing not quite as long, but I have those same cookbooks. Yep.
And I had a whole bunch of tomatoes this one year that I needed to use up. And I found this recipe, barley, green pepper, and tomato casserole. Ooh, and it's really interesting to make. And when you bring it into a house, you'd think you were delivering a pizza. I mean, it just smells like a wonderful pizza when you make it. So that's what I would do in those sort of months. But in the summer, I really have a favorite salad. It's a marinated salad, and it's a Mexican black bean, corn, and mango salad, and it's really colorful and perky. And so, yeah, those would be my top choices.
I love that. Oh, that sounds so good. And I think I'm going to definitely dig up that Lindsay cookbook because we have that in our kitchen here. And I'm going to look that up. Barley with green pepper. No, sorry. Was it barley, green pepper, and tomato casserole?
Mm-hmm. That's
okay.
It.
Oh, that's really unique sounding. Yeah.
Well, if it smells like pizza, then we're all about it in this family.
Oh, yeah. Me too. It's just wonderful.
Awesome. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, my goodness. Well, Rob, do you have any questions?
Well, I mean, we could sit and talk for hours. So I think we'll just have to have you back and get a little bit deeper next time because it is a really fascinating topic that, there's so many different directions we could go with it. But maybe for now, you can just tell people where they can get more information. You've got a website. Is that correct?
We do. So www.cravingchange.ca.
Okay.
And on the website, so I should mention that as a business, we just have primarily products that are just for healthcare providers. So we actually have online training and certification for other healthcare providers to use this with their clients.
Right.
So we do have a page on the website that's called Find a Clinician.
Perfect.
And anybody who's interested, we've got it divided by provinces and states, for example.
Yep.
So that if you're looking to take the program or even just to work with somebody who would use this approach with you, you can go there. The one thing we do have that people can access online access just as a member of the public, let's say, is a children's book called Is This Stomach, Mouth, or Heart Hunger? And that is on the website as well, along with quite a few free downloadable handouts. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday who's been using it a lot in their community and even in their school with children. And she's been amazed at how much the parents have learned from this children's book and how they're incorporating it. So there's actually an appendix at the back of the children's book for parents, educators, caregivers, and it talks about the 3 kinds of hunger and then ways to kind of respond in a way that's positive to the different types of hunger. So that anybody can access that product.
That's a great idea.
Awesome. So people can go on to your website and access these free downloads and use them in their either at home or with a class or. Mm-hmm. I love it.
That's right. Yeah. And there's a companion guide as well in that. If you typed in www.cravingchange.ca/4kids, that makes sense.
Yep.
And so there's a companion guide for anybody who would want to facilitate the concepts with children. Then there's also some downloadable handouts that, really, adults could use those downloadable handouts as well. They're just written in a way that are a little bit more for children.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. And we'll have all those links in the show notes in addition to a blog that you're writing, and we'll have that accessible for the public to get more information about our discussion today and just where people can find you and where they can find more resources.
That would be great.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so good. And we appreciate this interview so much today and that you took your time to talk to us. And I think Rob probably feels that he got a mini dietitian consult here.
Yeah, right. Rob
that wasn't his wife.
Habit. Yeah.
That's perfect. Lucky guy.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
No, I mean, it was a real pleasure to have a chat with you, and I'd absolutely love to do it again.
Awesome, Wendy. Yeah, it was great having you, and we will definitely connect with you again in the future to take this up to the next level.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're very welcome.
So I've got a whole new approach now to eating cheese and crackers.
Yeah, that was a good exercise that we did, or that Wendy did with you.
I think Wendy's voice and your voice is going to be in my head every time I snack now.
Oh no, I don't like that.
One in each ear.
Should be your own voice.
I'm just joking. It was really good information, and I think like you said in the intro, it's good for us to know that kind of stuff, because there's so many times when we are just eating mindlessly and we don't really question why. I don't think we even think to question why.
Yeah.
But these sort of tips that Wendy was talking about are good strategies for people to include in their eating habits.
And those tips are just the tip of the iceberg of the strategies. There's so many in our Craving Change class. It's awesome.
Yeah. I definitely think we could talk for like another hour, often. There's just endless stuff to, it's fascinating. I find this stuff really interesting. So
yeah, and I really encourage people to look up the website Craving Change and just look up if there's any dietitians offering that in their communities, to sign up for the class and get more information. The blog is up too for Craving Change from Wendy, and it's such a great program.
Her children's book that she mentioned sounds like a good reference or resource rather as well for people to investigate for themselves or their kids. Sounds like a good way to tap into that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So like Sandra said, check out the website. The blog that Wendy wrote will be up there soon. There's also other blogs coming up that we're including or adding rather on a fairly regular basis. And the website is mywifethedietitian.com. You can email us your questions or comments anytime as well at mywifetherd@gmail.com. We encourage you to rate and review the show, as that always helps other people find it. And don't forget to check out our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube. And we're adding things on there regularly as well.
And if you're a dietitian, you can look at the website, mywifethedietitian.com, and look at courses. There's some dietitian courses up there, one on working in long-term care as a dietitian and also oncology nutrition. And that's through Dietitian Central. So those are resources for people too.
Yeah, there you go. Lots of info. And stay with us. We'll be back Wednesday for another installment of Nutrition Nuggets. And then again next week. What do we have next week?
Nutrigenomics.
Well, that sounds like, we'll explain what all that means next week, but it's a really good interview too. So yeah, have a good week, everyone. We will talk to you more on Wednesday.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for joining us today on My Wife the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.